as I said to you before, if it hadn't been for the blueprint that you laid with Chasing Glory, in particular, the beautiful episode you did with Batista, which really struck a chord, I wouldn't be doing what I'm
Mm.
doing today. I mean, did you realize we're jumping massively ahead, but I'm going to ask you now, did you realize when you were doing Chasing Glory how much of an impact that show was having on people beyond the world of wrestling?
No, I didn't at the time. I mean, I just knew that I wanted to do this show. And when my dad was passing away, and I talked to him about an idea that I had in like 2004. And I said, I just really want to interview, these amazing superstars who I get to share the locker room with, and I get to hear the real stories and backstage with them. If people really knew what they have been through and how they got through it, I always felt like not only will people benefit, but they will become bigger fans of them, right? Because I think when we hear somebody's story of what they've been through, and it's like that heroic thing that would go, oh my gosh, you got through it. And then that gives other people hope. Well, if my favorite superstar went through all of this and they became a superstar, that means it doesn't matter that I'm going through all this. I can use this and I can still become something. So I had no idea what the impact was going to be of that show. But then when the letters started pouring in and the comments online, and they're like, you have no idea, you actually saved my life. I was going to commit suicide until I heard this story.
Wow.
That's when I went, whoa. And let me tell you, it was the hardest thing for me to put that show on hold.
Mm.
2021, my mother passed away. And I had been through such a season of taking care of my dad all the way to the end when he passed, and then taking care of my mom all the way till she passed, and then dealing with a marriage that was falling apart at the time. I was like, I can't give this show the time and the energy that it deserves because I was a shell of myself. So I think it's important to know when it's okay to step back and take a moment for yourself.
Mm.
Had I kept going, I think I would have definitely had a nervous breakdown. It was just too much to handle. And it's like, as I was praying, it's like, God's like, I'm just telling you to put it on hold. It doesn't mean you can never bring it back. Right. So I said, hold, because I really would love to bring it back.
Mm.
People ask me about it all the time. And I've said, I will bring it back. And it's still something that I'm very excited about and in love with that show and the concept of the show. I think Chasing Glory now looks something different. It's starting to look like what we thought the glory that we're chasing. It's wild what it's turned into. But I made a promise to myself that if I brought it back, or I should say when I bring it back, because I really do want to bring it back.
And
I'm not.
I've been nagging you for months to bring it back. So, and it won't
I
surprise you
know.
at all that as soon as I announced that you were coming on to Wrestling Life, I got message after message after message saying, ask her when Chasing Glory is coming back. So there's a
Oh,
lot of
that's
us out there
so
who need that back in
good.
our life when it's the right time for you.
Okay. But here's the thing. I made a promise to myself that I would bring it back with a team, and the right team. And the reason I say that is because a lot of it I was running on my own.
Yeah.
I had some help with like my editor, and I had this guy George that was helping me with the bios, but a lot of all the booking of the talent I was doing myself. I literally would set up the cameras, the lighting. I would do Ricky would do a lot of the editing, and then I'd come in, and then I'm like, oh, let's tweak this, let's tweak that, and then some of the editing, especially the audio files. People don't realize I did a lot of the editing of my own. Now, thank goodness I went to film school, so I knew how to do it. And I don't know if that made me feel like I have to do it because I
Yeah.
know how to do it. And I learned just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you have to do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I said, no, this time around, when I bring it back, I'm going to start using the word when I bring it back, I'm going to line myself up with the team so that I don't burn out.
Yeah.
Because by the end of that 4th year, I literally, like I said, I know having my father and my mother so sick, added on top of that, having a marriage that was, crumbling. That didn't help, but I still think it's the right decision.
Mm.
Have a team. I think it's important.
Oh,
So
I mean,
I am interviewing a team, by the way. I'm in the process right now of interviewing a team. So I will give you that.
our good mutual friend Chris Van Vliet is always saying to me that the reason, his content does so well now is because it's not him, it's a team who are making it work. But I
Oh,
think,
good. Good to
you
hear that.
the thing, you were so ahead of your time with podcasting, because a lot of people are doing podcasts how I'm doing them, which is via, this allows me to speak with friends in America, so this works for me. But you have the studio set up, you have this really polished
Yeah.
production. A lot of people weren't doing that back then. That's kind of become the norm for bigger podcasts now. But you were quite an early adopter of the whole in-person, intimate conversation. I think that's why they work so well.
I definitely know that's why it works so well. So here's the thing. My podcast was so getting intimate with people and their true journey. And I felt like if you're going to pour your story out there, and people were counting on me and they were trusting me with their story and being so vulnerable, right? It had to be in person. They needed to feel my authenticity, that I genuinely wanted to know their story and share their most intimate things with the world, but in a loving way where their story becomes a vehicle to help others, right? And not exploiting them in any way. And I just felt like it was important to do it in person.
Yeah.
And this was before 2020. I mean, 2020 forced a lot of people to have to go online. And I get that. Luckily, there was a little bit of 2020 that I had been doing audio for a very long time. So there was a point that I had to go to doing this sort of, Zoom calling and stuff at the same time, and some phone conversations. I think the other thing too is that people started knowing my show for what it was. And so they were ready. When they came on my show, they were ready to share a lot of things. But in 2021, when I ended up getting the opportunity to sign with WWE, and put Chasing Glory on their platform on Peacock. And if for anybody out there that wants to experience Chasing Glory on a platform where you can actually see it, because I did audio for so many years, I think for 150 episodes, just audio. When I did, because at the very, very beginning, it was called Making Their Way to the Ring. That's the one that I had on video for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had that on video for a very long time. And then I went to Podcast One, which Podcast One only did audio. Then I left Podcast One, went back to video, where I'll never forget the head of Podcast One was like, "You belong on video. This show belongs on video." So he was happy that I ended up leaving.